La diffusion vient de démarrer. Tous les participants sont en mode écoute seule.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to greet you and to welcome you to the sixth and-hour technical webinar series for the next 3 months. This series will focus on the best practices in using spatial data, examples from around the world. My name is Mario Marigo and I'm a UNDP technical specialist for the 6th National Report to the CBD project, and I will be facilitating this webinar today together with my colleagues Prudence Rain and Diego Ochoa. So as you know, spatial data can help us understand where biodiversity and ecosystem services are located, how human pressures impact nature, and the potential impact of conservation actions. These data also can help improve the effectiveness of the measure to achieve the Aichi biodiversity targets and will guide the implementation of the CBD's post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. So we challenged all the countries to double the number of maps in their 6th national report as compared to their 5th national report and their original NBSAP. And we are on track to succeed, and it is time now to showcase the best practices and learn from each other. And to do so, we have a webinar series, this one, and we are hosting 4 webinars to demonstrate how 16 countries are using spatial data to enhance biodiversity conservation. And in this context, today is our second webinar session, and we will focus on how can spatial data in national reports support national biodiversity monitoring and management. Today, we normally will have 5 presentations from 5 different countries. However, unfortunately, our presenters are facing really challenging circumstances in their own countries, and for now, we only have 3 presenters from respectively Belize, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ecuador. For sure, we will have 3 presentations, and we're working on having a 4th and maybe a 5th presentation today. We thank you for your understanding for that. So before we begin, I just want to share with you some rules and dynamics for this webinar session. The microphones are muted during the presentation because that reduces interferences and that facilitates the communication. The session will last 2 hours. After a presentation from our colleague, we will open the floor for questions and remarks. And if you think of a question while the presentation is in progress, you can use the control panel and write it. And when the Q&A session comes, I will read your question to our speakers and he or she can answer it. If you want to speak and the connection allows it, we will open your microphone during the Q&A session. To let us know that you would like to speak, you can simply raise your hand by clicking on the hand button in the control panel. For your information, the session is recorded and will be uploaded on the NBSAP Forum YouTube channel. And we will also share the presentation on the NBSAP Forum via email. So for your information, the presentation of today's webinar will be given in English. However, I am a native French speaker and my colleague Diego is a native Spanish speaker. And as such, we are happy to take questions in the 3 languages and we will translate them if necessary. Similarly, we can translate answers and responses in English to French and Spanish if you want so. En français, donc pour information, la présentation du webinaire d'aujourd'hui sera donnée en anglais. Cependant, je suis francophone et mon collègue Diego est hispanophone, et donc nous pouvons prendre vos questions en anglais, en espagnol et en français, et on peut donc les traduire si nécessaire. Et de même, on peut traduire les réponses de l'anglais vers le français et l'espagnol si vous le souhaitez. Y en español, para información, la presentación del webinar de hoy será en inglés. Sin embargo, soy francófona y mi colega Diego habla español. Por lo tanto, podemos responder sus preguntas en inglés, español y francés y las traduciremos si es necesario. Y de manera similar, podemos traducir las respuestas del inglés al francés y al español si es necesario. So back to English now. I would like to warmly welcome and thank our colleague from, well, the 3 countries right now for being our speakers today. So we have a little change in our order actually. And first, I will ask Hannah to go first because Hannah is from Belize and we'll have to go quite soon. So Hannah, actually, can you give very briefly a presentation of yourself, and then while we're putting on the story map for Belize, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or good night, wherever you're connecting from. My name is Hannah, and I work with the Belize Forest Department. I have been responsible for the biodiversity portfolio within the government. We've recently developed our 6th national report, which has been submitted to the UN Biodiversity, to the UN CBD. And it is indeed a pleasure for me to share with you our experience in the use of spatial data in biodiversity monitoring and management. My presentation is very brief. As Marion explained, I will have to leave this session prior to the end of the session, but please feel free to email me any questions you might have. And I also believe the presentation contact information of presenters will be sent to all participants today. As soon as my presentation becomes visible, I will get it started.
Prudence, I don't know if you can display your screen right now. I give you the authorization to be in the presenter. Is it working? If not, Diego, did you load the... Oh,
and everyone see this?
No, we cannot see your screen right now, but we can hear you.
It says that I'm showing my screen.
So go to the control panel in sharing and then display the menu and look for show my screen.
So as I was saying at the beginning of the webinar, we're having very challenging circumstances right now. Diego, actually, did you have a chance to preload all the story maps?
Yes, hold on. I am just open the Belize, and once it's open, I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Just the map, right? The story map.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, so let me know.
Can you see it? Because it says it's showing.
I think we're seeing Diego's screen right now, and it seems to be working. So let's do like that for now. Hannah, can you see the screen of your presentation?
Yes, I am. Yes, I can, sorry.
Perfect. So if that's okay, then Hannah, we're gonna take care of your presentation, and you can just say next whenever you need to go next slide, okay?
Okay, can we expand the screen, please? Can we go full screen mode?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes, once again, I'm going to present on the use of spatial data to assist in conservation, monitoring and management in Belize. The other presenters, next, Diego, the other presenters may speak on different management objectives. For my presentation, I'm going to focus on forest connectivity. Okay, right now. So protected areas, right now I'm trying to move it. Protected areas and other conservation measures such as corridors are recognized as key factors to achieving conservation objectives and sustainable development goals. We consider protected areas and the corridors as conservation tools, which have contributed significantly to our well-being, the well-being of people, and quality of life. Primarily, we do not want to remove the human component from biodiversity. And so protected areas, corridors as a conservation tool contribute to the quality of life of our people. They also safeguard key ecosystems, goods and services is essential for whether it's national growth or for species conservation. For example, in Belize, protected areas, like I think in most other countries, serve the function of protecting our water catchment areas. They serve the function of protecting our key flora and fauna. They serve as reservoir of our biodiversity at the national level. Next. However, next slide. However, the health of our ecosystems depend heavily on the ability of species, genetic pools, genetic sources to flow across from one area to the next. Thus, in Belize, we recognize the importance of connectivity not just of forest cover, but for connectivity within our protected area system. So the Belize Protected Area System is made up of approximately 103 recognized sites. These sites span across 6 categories of protected areas, but we also recognize private protected areas within the protected area system of Belize. Our protected areas network make up approximately 36% of the national territory, and we're proud to say that in Belize we have 60% of our forest cover still intact. So as I mentioned, these 60% of forest cover, whether it's within or outside of protected area, serve as a reservoir of biodiversity and geospatial features, which underpin key industries in Belize. Belize's industry is driven by our natural resources, our agriculture, our tourism, which makes up 15% of our GDP. Fisheries, forestry, even agriculture are highly dependent on biodiversity and our natural resources. Most of these natural resources, the representative, there is a high representation of our key ecosystems within our protected area system. Next slide. So Belize harbors a total of 118 globally threatened species. 9 are critically endangered, 32 are endangered, and 77 are vulnerable species. And a further 62 near threatened or at least species of concern are harbored within Belize. Of these, the critically endangered Central American river turtle, locally called the Hecate, is considered at highest risk of local extinction. 2 species of sawfish, the small tooth and large tooth sawfish, are considered ecologically extinct from Belize in the last 30 to 40 years. We're very proud of having a healthy jaguar population. And as you know, jaguars are far-roaming species. And so definitely our corridors play a critical role in maintaining jaguar population health in Belize. Next slide. So what are the main causes of biodiversity loss in Belize? These causes would be linked to pressures and threats to our ecosystems. One of the main threats to our ecosystems is land use change, and I think such is the case in most of the country. Though we boast of having 60% forest cover, 36% of that being protected, it does not remove us from having threats. As I mentioned, our main drivers, GDP drivers, and resource base. And so we definitely consider unregulated and unsustainable use as a threat to what we would say in Belize, to what we would call in Belize our bread and butter. So the main use changes have been linked to deforestation, use change, from forest to agriculture, forest to tourism, forest to urban areas, to development. Forest fragmentation, agricultural based, infrastructure development. Another threat to our biodiversity is the clearance of mangroves, unregulated clearance of riparian and littoral forests. Another threat to biodiversity is climate change. If species are able to migrate at a rate or to where they would be required to migrate due to climate change, the lack of connectivity can definitely affect our species. Another cause of biodiversity loss is exploitation of resources. Like in all countries, illegal fishing, illegal hunting, illegal wildlife trade have all been key causes of biodiversity loss. Where that is the case, countries are required to establish regulations, policies, and laws which will govern the use and management of these resources. Another cause of being cited as pollution from agrochemicals, from sewage, from sedimentation, industrial and urban effluents. We've cited the loss of certain species due to pollutions from factories, from the sugarcane industry, from the citrus industry, for example. We also see anthropogenic fires as being a cause of biodiversity loss. As I mentioned, we're heavily dependent, based on our cultural practices, of fires within our agricultural systems. Most times these fires are unplanned. There is limited regulation of who's setting fire and when. The seasons most adequate for these practices. And so what this has led to is massive loss of forested areas, especially within our pine forests, which are severely exposed. We also have a cause of biodiversity loss related to invasive species. Belize is not foreign to invasive species. We have the lionfish, and in the past we had the tilapia, which invaded most of our waterways. We have unsustainable tourism practices. As I mentioned, one of the leading GDP contributors is the tourism industry, but this required the establishment of tourism infrastructure for hotels, roads, facilities which would support the tourism industry. The unregulated, on a time, non-limited enforcement of the Environmental Protection Act, the Forest Act, the Mangrove Regulation has led to the unsustainable practices within the tourism industry. And in Belize, for those who may not know, Belize shares border with Mexico and Guatemala. Transboundary incursion has especially affected our key biodiversity area, which is the Chiquibul Forest in the central area of Belize. And natural disasters, I don't think any of us is exempt from natural disasters. We have natural fires also, especially in our pine forest. We have hurricanes. Belize is affected by hurricanes, which have affected our forest cover and has led to the loss of biodiversity. Next slide. Next. Okay, so the deforestation rate, or deforestation has developed at such a rate that today we face potentially, and I say potentially because forests will recover, irreversible conversion and fragmentation. Belize has a deforestation rate of 0.3% in 2010, and currently in 2019, we have a deforestation rate of 0.6%. which means we've increased our deforestation rate by 0.3%. However, our corridors, or the areas previously recognized as being key areas for connectivity, have seen a deforestation rate of 4.4%. And this generally occurs within our corridors, but as you know, corridors don't always fall within protected areas. Corridors can run across a mosaic of multiple land tenure within those areas. And so our main areas identified for connectivity, for promoting connectivity, have faced a deforestation rate from 2010 to 2016 of 4.6%. Next. So spatial data can be used to map protected areas connectivity and the biological corridors. I am unable, I believe, I'm not sure if you're seeing my pointer, but protected areas in Belize span across the central area of Belize, which is the larger land masses, protected land masses. And then we have connectivity to the north and south of Belize. However, due to, again, as I mentioned, land tenure and land use change, we've noticed that there was a reduction of areas previously recognized as being key for connectivity. And so this has prompted government to establish key corridors, which will allow us to maintain connectivity within our protected area system. Within the protected area system, but also between the protected area system and other national lands or private lands. Next. Okay, so one of the corridors established is the Belize Central Corridor, the last remaining forested corridor between the Selva Maya and the Maya Mountain Massif. It is under immediate threat. The main threat identified to this area is the expanding agricultural frontier, primarily for sugarcane. This area was functional for hundreds of years, but is has been heavily threatened over the last decade. It is a seasonally inundated forest which supports the livelihood of residents or buffering communities, and now it is on the brink of extinction due to major private agricultural company, which have now recognized these areas as prime agricultural lands. So the area in red, the hash, is the areas that are now under threat from land use change, and the non-hashed line polygons are the areas which have been identified, but they already fall within protected areas, so they are not under threat. Next. So the corridor, which was once 103,548 hectares, has been reduced and is now almost entirely under private ownership. And that's the area in red. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So we recognize this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where government can purchase approximately 12,000 hectares for the last available forested parcels of this globally important area to place them under permanent protection and management. Securing endangered species population and resident and downstream communities would their water and other timber and non-timber forest produce. The high deforestation within our corridors are way higher than you have even at the national level. But again, it's because when you look at countries which have poor land use planning, tend to have unregulated agricultural and tourism development. And what that does is it results in the loss of key ecosystem functions. So you may gain revenues or income streams from the activities, but the long-term cost to countries as it relates to loss to key biodiversity, loss to key ecosystems, goods and services, it is best that countries prevent this loss of these ecosystems and the loss of these ecosystem goods and services. Next. So of 83 wildlife corridors analyzed globally, the Central Belize Corridor had the 10th highest rate of deforestation. Today, the connection between the forest of the Maya Mountain is hanging by a thread, and it faces the immediate threat of irreversible fragmentation, as I mentioned, due to conversion to sugarcane. Protection and management of a functional corridor represents a better alternative to the impact associated with large-scale conversion or the eventual cost of reforestation and restoration. It must, however, take on a multi-stakeholder approach. Then what is needed is the protection and management of a functional corridor represents a better alternative to the impacts associated with large-scale conversion or the eventual cost, as I mentioned, of restoration. It must take on a multi-stakeholder approach, and so for this land, the retention of these areas as protected or as corridors required the coordinated approach. For this, we convened a group or technical working group made up of academia looking at the University of Belize, private landowners who have strong conservation values or recognize the need of maintaining these forests for key ecosystem goods and services. We've also been engaging with the lands department within the government of Belize, because as you know,
Hannah, we seem to have lost you. Can you still hear us? Hannah, for some reason, I cannot hear you anymore, and I'm guessing that other people cannot hear you either. I am sorry about that, and I was really looking forward to having the end of your presentation, so I'm just gonna mute you and then unmute you. But I think there was a connectivity issue with Hannah as well, so you know, when it rains, it pours. So to all the participants, I really apologize for that. Hannah Martinez then was the presenter for Belize and is right now on a field mission in Colombia and has limited access to the internet. We will definitely share with you the presentation that Hannah was giving until now. And you will be also able to address your questions to Hannah. You can send them to us based on the presentation you saw, or any question that you may have based on the protected areas and spatial data in Belize, and we'll make sure that we can send this to you. I am actually delighted to know that we have our speaker also from Haiti that seems to have been able to connect. So I think Sandy is with us. But in the meantime, I would like to invite, yes, the Democratic Republic of Congo to be the presenter. So we have with us Henri-Paul Eloma, who will present in behalf of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And Henri-Paul is a national expert in socioeconomy, law, and environmental finance at UNDP, and he holds 2 master's degrees from Omar Bongo University and the University of Kinshasa. And previously, he worked as a researcher at the Institut Congolais pour la Conservation de la Nature, for the conservation of nature, and as a consultant for the organization such as UNESCO, UNOPS, WWF, and FAO. So Henri-Paul, I'm going to open your microphone, and you should be able to speak. Can you hear us, and can you speak?
Hi.
Perfect. We can hear you.
Yeah, I can talk now.
Yeah, go ahead.
You.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening for all of us. Like Mario talked, I work for UNDP, DRC, but the presentation is a compilation of the work carried out by the Sustainable Development and Forest Inventory and Management departments of the Ministry of the Environment. For the part of forest issues, it is the work also from the Congolese Institute for Nature Conservation, ICCN. It is the national authority for the management of protected areas in DRC. Mario, it's not my
yes,
story map.
I'm going to put Prudence as a presenter to display your story maps. Is it working, Prudence? Can you display? I am very sorry, we're encountering so many technical issues today. So Prudence, perfect. We can see your screen, and we should be able to see the story map. If you can put that in full screen.
Yeah, we are there now. Okay.
Perfect.
It's okay now. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I said that we can talk about an unlimited number of problems, threats, success stories. But for this first participation, we have chosen two topics, the problem of deforestation and the increasingly serious problem of biodiversity loss. And it's about the Democratic Republic of Congo. How we are using spatial data for safeguard forest and ecosystem services. Second. Okay. DRC, DR Congo, is the only African country among the world's mega biodiversity countries. There are a lot of endemic species, such as okapi. The okapi is animal between giraffe and like a zebra. Yeah, it's like a zebra, like a giraffe, the forest giraffe. There are grower gorilla. It's the species which is found only in Congo. Bonobo is a kind of chimpanzee, but scientific community think that it's the animal who is very close by the human species. And there are also Congolese peacock. The forest in Congo closed 155 million of hectares of vegetation cover, representing about 47% of the tropical forest. The tropical forest. Excuse me. But the tropical forest in Africa continent, and 6% of the world's tropical reserves. The next. The next one. And due to the socio-economic importance, both of the forest industry and for the local and indigenous population, the government's challenge is to develop the network of protected area, currently estimated at plus or minus 13% of the national territory, so that it reaches 17 and above. Also that they are functional and are subject to effective and efficient management. The next one. Okay, as a guarantor of the Congo Basin Forest, the world's second largest after the Amazon, the second land, they say here, the government authorities, supported by technical and financial partners, have worked to prevent the degradation of the country's forest cover and to contain the erosion of its rich biodiversity. About the forest cover, we can see in the map a very large cover of the national territory is the forest. The second one. There are a lot of categories of forest and savanna also. There are mangrove too for 40 kilometers in the Atlantic Ocean. The annual deforestation rate in DRC has increased from 0.44% for the period of 2000 to 2010 to 1.25% for the period between 2010 to 2014. The main causes are slash and burn agriculture, the local agriculture with the people, the local peoples. The search of firewood, it's the main problem also. The illegal logging, the urban sprawl, the transport infrastructure, and controlled quarrying. You know that DRC is a country with a lot of mines. Additional distant causes are the population growth. We are now between 80 million of population, and also the poverty, because I think that our country is a poor country. The next one. But the growing population has influenced threats and pressures of biodiversity by guiding the government to extend national coverage of protected areas. Protected areas coverage has increased from 9% in the yearly of 2000 to 11% at the end of the decade, and protected are now covering 13.8% of the country. The objective by 2020 is to reach 15% of coverage. You know, the largest of the country, and if we say 13% is like some countries in the world, I think, you know. Next one. Okay, but now spatial data and spatial mapping are used to increase the national coverage of protected area in DRC. The country can draw on maps showing threatened species richness and high biodiversity concentration to guide where new protected area should be developed. The next one. in the map, in the other side, you can say, okay, here, a meeting for over 80 terrestrial and 80 terrestrial and freshwater biodiversity experts undertook a biodiversity assessment and determined 41 priority areas and 13 corridors based in their biological values to be prioritized for conservation. The utilization of spatial data and the opinions of experts have made it possible to identify within the framework. The map is in the left. In the framework of the program of support for protected areas network, PARAP, where potential protected areas should be by targeting the conservation of areas that are highly rich in biodiversity. Until now, there are yet some zones, some surfaces where we can build the protected area until now. The next one. But to end by the conclusion, for future spatial data use, we are hoping to establish a central and common structure to observe change in forest cover and biodiversity, will address challenges of the operational and strategic level. Because now there are some laboratories from partners, technical partners, but I think that we need a central system with public system and other partners like this. They can have the synergy. I think that is a need now. Okay. To end the second part of conclusion. Yeah. The next one. Okay. The effective use of spatial data resources can better guide the government's decisions to safeguard forests, maintain ecosystem services for climate regulation. I said that we are the second big forest in the world, and conservation of biodiversity, because these forests have a lot of enriched biodiversity through informed expansion of protected areas, because the IEC objective is to reach 17% by 2030. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Henri-Paul, for this great presentation. As I was saying at the beginning, we will keep all of the questions from the audience actually for the end of the sessions, because we have 2 more presentations to go. And the next one to go will be coming from Ecuador. So while we're displaying the screen, actually I want to introduce Zornitza Aguilar, who will be presenting on the behalf of Ecuador. And Zornitza is a biologist at the Universidad Católica del Ecuador, and she has served as a liaison between the Ecuador's Ministry of Environment and UNDP, and she was also the National Director of Research, Information, and Environmental Education. She holds a master's degree in management and conservation of the natural environment. And thank you so much, Zornitsa, for being here today. I wonder if you can hear me and if your microphone is working, because you're currently muted. So can you unmute your microphone and then we can hear you? Zornitsa?
Right.
Yes.
That's okay.
Perfect. The floor is yours. Thank you so much for your time and for your presentation.
Okay, well, hi everybody. I'm Zornitsa Aguilar, I'm from Ecuador, and I'm an external consultant, and I work for UNDP and the Ecuadorian Environmental Ministry. So what I want to show you is a little example that how the spatial data are going to be really a success to help decision makers. And let me see. Right, okay. The next slide, please. I can do it by myself.
It is actually, considering the technical issues we have, Zornitsa, we're gonna keep Diego displaying the screen if it's okay. It's very challenging today.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh no. Let me see. I don't know what happened with. All right. Okay. Well, according to the sixth national report, Ecuador contains some of the rich biodiversity hotspots in the world, including Amazon, rainforest, Andean highland, coastal mangrove ecosystems, and a famous cool forest. Ecuador is only a very small country. It's around 3% of the size of Canada, but the majority area is a biodiversity hotspot defined by USDA. Over 18,000 species of the planet, and in Ecuador it's possible to find 4,800 species of vertebrates between fish, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals, and around 1 million species of arthropods. Okay. I think I'm going to ask for a little help to change the slides. Thank you. Okay. And well, the cool forest, it's one of the most important for biodiversity, have a huge levels of biodiversity. And well, in this kind of forest, it's possible to find between 15 and 70% of the world plant species and nearly 20% of global bird biodiversity. And now to niche of 40% of these species are endemic. The next. Okay, and to gain a better understanding of Ecuador and natural treasures, the Ministry of Environmental developed the Vegetation Map project. And in 2012, and as a result of this research, it's possible to find in Ecuador around 91 types of ecosystems, and these cover around 65 forest ecosystems. 14 of these are herbaceous and 12 of these are shrubs. Next. Yeah, one of the principal problems in Ecuador have to be about degradation. Sadly, this ecosystem and their biodiversity are threatened by fragmentation of forests through deforestation. The fragmentation creates a reduced ability to buffer disturbance, which leads to increased fragmentation, reduced resilience, and the loss of biodiversity. Next. Also develop some comparison between deforestation by some periods of time. One of these is 1990 to 2000, and the most recently comparison with the period of time between 2014 and 2016, and deforestation in Ecuador has been reduced. That's the good news. And the last decades, according to the official information, the overall annual gross deforestation went from around 130 hectares per year in the period of 1990 and 2000, and that's reduced to around 94,000 hectares per year in the period 2014-2016. Next. Well, according to the adding to the socioeconomic dimension, the change in land use that explain deforestation follow different patterns depending on the intensification of land use, the physical conditions, and the restructure of rural employment. Maps of land cover use determined more than 90% of deforestation in due to transformation of forests into agricultural lands. In the graphic, it's possible to see different kinds of uses of land, like grass, cacao, coffee, corns, and another mix. Another mix agriculture activities. Next. Well, steps taken against deforestation by government of Ecuador, 48% of the area of native forest is located in the conservation of management area, which include national system of protected areas, forest and vegetation protectors, and the Sociobosque program. The spatial data also play a fundamental role to determine which area are the set aside of the project that identify the type of ecosystem and present a proposed projected area and the degree of the ecosystem fragility. This is very important because in the last year we changed a little bit the national system of protected area. We increased to 56 area, and in the next years, it's possible to include the systems around 4 or 5 new areas to the system in the category of carry on management by the local governments. So this information is very useful for decision makers to choose what is their priority to select the protected areas and where will be the borders in order to have better conditions to protect the ecosystem and the round life of some fragile species. The protected area focus in some sort have a high and a very high fragility. That's another thing that is very important. And Ecuador currently has a 56 protected area, what I say. And yeah, that's going to improve in the next years, according to the information who is in the 6th national report. The next. Well, like a future steps, we base on the dynamic of deforestation in new territories, area of importance of biodiversity, water regulation, and carbon footprints. In 6 intervention zones were defined to the implementation of the RED Plus Action Plan. And we have some main goals. The first is to reduce the gross carbon emissions at least 20% by 2025, referring to the period of 2000 and 2008. And the other main goal is by the 2025, the policies, measures, and actions of this plan will contribute to reduce the net rate of deforestation. The next. Well, this project has showcased here and play a central role in helping us to deliver the CDB, in particular with the spatial data to contribute to national progress through the Aichi biodiversity targets. I mean the target number 5, and that's about fragmentation, and target number 7, 11 about protected area, is 12 around endangered species, and 14 about climate change. And we also contribute to our list of 10 national goals established in the National Biodiversity Strategy. The next. And in Ecuador, we believe that enable access and the analysis of the spatial data through visualization tools are essential to conventional reports and decision making. The spatial data will play a key role in preparation of Ecuador's 6th national report to conventional biological diversity. Presenting the information in this way helps the decision makers to better guide the environmental policies and to give continuity to environmental actions, particularly when their political and administrative change periods are changing. In country resources and capacity are complemented with the UN Biodiversity Lab to help to deliver the Aichi biodiversity targets, as well as the broader 2030 agenda for sustainable development. And last, and to finish, if you want more information, all the information of this presentation is in the Biodiversity Lab. The 6th national report is possible to find in the web of the National Institute of Biodiversity, that's in Navia in Ecuador, and this is the link. All the information of the 6th national report is available. And also the story maps, it's by MapX. You know where to sit. It's by this way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lorenza. Thanks so much for your presentation. And stay with us because we will have some questions, I think, at the end of the session. And I already received a question for you, so stay with us. So despite many challenges, I think we have with us the representative of Haiti. And Sandy, I don't know if you can hear us and if you can speak to us. Unfortunately, I think we do have some issues with Sandy today. Just to briefly give you context, there are quite violent movements right now in Haiti, and Sandy kindly accepted to take the webinar and to do the presentation from his place, but unfortunately the internet is not the best. So in the meantime, I'm going to open the floor to more questions. So I have a very first question actually for actually you, Zomitsa, from Ecuador. I have a question from Diego that is asking, can you give us your thoughts on how the analysis that you show is incorporated in policy work, and especially at the local and the regional level? So if you have any element of response to that, Ornitza?
Yeah, could you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think this information around to help in different ways to develop the RED action plan is one. I think is one of the most important. Also to the last eight protected areas who was created in the last 4 years have information that was developed by the by this activity. I mean, was information and spatial information that was developed about the 91 ecosystems, and helps to define borders, helps to define policies and priorities. And this is essential for technical partners. I mean, we have a different change by the government administration in Ecuador in the last 2 years. Many things are going to change very quickly, but it's very important to have this technical information in the environmental ministry, in the agriculture ministry, that was possible to give continuously the activities of the environmental policies.
Great. Thank you so much, Diego. I think that answers your question. Thank you, Doritza, a lot for that. Actually, this question could be also applied to our colleagues, to our colleague from DRC right now. Henri Paul, could you tell us how all of the analysis, how you have this analysis put into your policy, let's say, at the national level, but also at the local level? Do you have a few words to say on that? And if you want, you can say in French and I will translate in English. Est-ce que tu nous entends, Henri Paul?
Oui, je vous.
Alors, il y a un peu de bruit derrière, nous on ne t'entend pas très bien. Est-ce que c'est mieux là?
J'ai coupé la climatisation qui faisait un peu de bruit.
Ah,
Moi, je vous
chaud chez vous. Très bien. So the question in English, and I can translate in French, the question is really how the spatial analysis that you are doing and you presented can be included in the national policy at the national level, but also at the local level. Donc, comment est-ce qu'en fait les analyses qui sont faites, les analyses spatiales, sont ensuite insérées au niveau des politiques nationales et des politiques locales? Est-ce que tu peux un peu discuter et nous parler de cette façon de procéder?
Okay, I can try in English.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. And if you have a word that you don't know, just ask me in French and then I'll translate.
Okay. A lot of policy or a lot of things I presented is in the national level, because the system is very centralized in the national level. But now there are 26 regions, province, I think in French. But now there are the decentralization system, but there are also now some protected areas which are in the authorities of the province. But in my presentation, like I said, the level of policy is the national level. Like to create a new protected area, the decision come from the national level. But the decision makers, the national authorities, must wait the work of experts with maps, I say, to compare where there are a lot of biodiversity, where there are not some peoples, the density of people is very low, where there are forests, the pan of forests to protect, and after we can make the draft of decision and give to national authorities. Until now, the procedures come from national level, I can say. But soon, the local level can will be functional too. I can say that this.
Great, thank you so much for the elements of response. I do not see any questions so far from our participants. To other participants online right now, I really encourage you to take this opportunity to ask questions to our presenter. We have a few more minutes to go, and it's actually quite a unique occasion for you to exchange with experts on the topic and see how spatial data can guide you in conservation and monitoring of biodiversity in your country. So I would strongly encourage you to raise your hand, or I will open your microphone, or you can also type your question. I see. So I see one question. I also see that our colleague from Haiti is desperately trying to connect with us, and I'm gonna try to put you as presenter, Sandy. Sandy, I don't know if you can hear us. This is the last time we're trying for today. This is very challenging. Sandy, if you can hear us, can you please send me a chat? In the meantime, I have Aki Denor. Sandy, can we hear you? So Sandy, we can definitely hear something from your side. Could you try to speak?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes, perfect. Hi, Sandy. This is so great to hear your voice. Thank you so much for trying again and again to connect and to be with us. So maybe before taking the question from our colleagues, I see there are plenty of questions actually for our participants. Since we have Sandy online and the internet is very tricky, I propose that we go ahead with Sandy's presentation, and then we will take your questions for sure. And I see there's a question from Akinador and Nahe Felicia. For sure, we will take your questions after that. So please stay online. Sandy, do you see the story maps on the screen? I'm not sure if you can hear us again. We cannot hear you speaking. Can you speak a little bit? Sandy, can you hear us?
Hello.
Okay, now we can hear you. So please stay like that. And can you see the story map on the screen? Okay, this is definitely challenging. Sandy, I don't know if you can hear us or not. I know participants have questions, and I would really like to take their questions. I'm sorry, the sound doesn't seem to work, but we heard you for a second. Et donc Sandy, peut-être si tu peux... je ne sais pas pourquoi ça marche de temps en temps et de temps en temps ça ne marche pas. Est-ce que tu peux parler et commencer la présentation de la story map, s'il te plaît? Ok, je ne pense pas que ça marche. Je suis désolée, Sandy, il va falloir revenir la semaine prochaine. Je vais prendre les questions de nos participants en attendant et voir si tu peux régler le souci de l'écho. Et on te reprend ensuite. Donc, pour le moment, j'ai donc plusieurs questions. Alors, on va commencer par Aki Denor. Je vois que vous avez une main levée. So Akinor, can you hear us? And we have several questions. So we're going to start by you. Are you hearing us and can you speak to us? Hello? Nope, it's definitely not working. However, Akinor also sent a question. So the question Akinor is asking is actually about the sources of most of the data. And he's also asking if the remotely sent data can be used. So I can see, Akinor, that you tell us that you hear me, and this is great. However, I do not hear you if you're speaking on the microphone. So your first question is actually, what are the sources of most of the data that have been displayed? So maybe I can give the floor to Zornitsa. If where the data from, actually, the data that you displayed.
Hi, Marianne. The data we're using in this information for this?
Yep.
Well, it's information that was carried out by the monitoring, environmental monitoring unit of the Ecuadorian ministry. I mean, it's official environmental information. And yeah, and we have the projection to work together with the UN Biodiversity Lab to work together, because in this moment we have only if we have the possibility to use for national laws, to use only the information that was carried on by the Ecuadorian ministry. By the way, I mean, we know that it's important to interchange information to have the possibility to know different analysis that is possible, to open the possibilities to analyze in another way that information.
Okay, great, thank you. And what about you, Henri? Where's this data from? Most of the data that have been used today.
Allô, Marion? Juste une petite traduction de la question en français pour que je comprenne.
Oui, bien sûr. C'est vraiment, ça porte en fait sur les sources de données. Et donc, quelles sont ces sources de données et donc d'où viennent ces sources de données? De données spatiales, celles que vous avez utilisées dans la présentation.
Oui. La plupart des données, a lot of data come from UN Biodiversity Lab. But there are also some maps from NASA, because there are for a lot of from Landsat satellite images, and they are from some laboratory, local laboratory here, like OSFAC. OSFAC is a forest observatory of Central African forest here in Kinshasa. Also from DIAF. DIAF is the Inventory and Management Forest Department from Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development. There, FAO make a laboratory about the monitoring of the degradation of forest with FAO, with the ministry department, but also with some universities like Leuven Catholic University, also for the monitoring of
biodiversity.
Of deforestation. Yeah. But about biodiversity, it's from some international NGO like WWF and WCCS.
Very good. Yeah, just for completing your response, Henri-Paul, so the UN Biodiversity Lab is where we are showing actually this data today, and the story maps that we're displaying are actually created from the UN Biodiversity Lab that has over, for each of the countries presented, has over 80 data layers available. So I strongly encourage you to each of you maybe check this website, and most of the countries also have national projects, meaning, it's a tool dedicated to supporting monitoring and conservation of biodiversity. And so I also encourage you to check the national project. Another thing that I can say also is that DRC is part of a set of a few country pilots working with some universities and the NASA to improve the condition of forests. So they're looking at the connectivity and the corridors in the forest, and also the height and the nature of the forest, if it's an old forest, etc. So DRC is part of this pilot that is testing the data layers that eventually will be put online for more countries for better conservation of habitats, and a direct link to ABT5. So thanks so much, Henri-Paul, for that response. I see we have another hand raised from Nahe Felicia. I'm going to open your microphone. Let's see if you can hear us as I was expecting, because it's today was a webinar. Your microphone is not working, Nahe, so if you can type your question in the control panel, and I will read it out loud. I am sorry about that. So we do have another question from Angela Devia. She is asking, I would like to know what data tools are used to show the information for decision makers. I see something like GeoLadris, but I would like to know what tools are being used. So, Angela, I am not sure you're talking about the current thing that you're seeing on the screen, but if that's the case, it's definitely the UN Biodiversity Lab, and one of the features is called the story map, where it's possible to actually overlay data layers, animations, and also a narrative and pictures, and that's what we're trying to do and feature today. I'm not sure this is what you wanted to know, but as also our colleague said, they do have not only the UN Biodiversity Lab, but also national lab and national platforms. And actually, I strongly encourage you to watch the recording of the first webinar we did 2 weeks ago that was specifically focusing on national platforms. So I hope, Angela, that answers your question partially, at least. And I see that Nahe Felicia, I'm sorry again that we cannot hear you and open your microphone, but you're typing your question, and I see that you're asking, I would like to know the data tools, the time frame, and the data and the procedure. So this is a broad question. We're going to try to frame a bit. You would like to know the data tools. I guess this is what we just discussed with the UN Biodiversity Lab. The time frame, the data, and the procedure. So maybe we can focus on a time frame first. And I'm going to turn over to you, Henri-Paul, again, for discussing the time frame. How do you choose the time frame for the data? So how do you choose when a data should start and when data is finishing, for instance?
Marion, comme toujours, voilà, une petite explication en français pour que je sache que je n'aille pas à côté.
Oui, bien sûr. Alors la question, ça porte sur le time frame, c'est-à-dire sur la période en fait des données. Donc comment est-ce qu'on choisit quand est-ce que les données commencent et quand est-ce qu'elles finissent, par exemple, pour faire une analyse. Et la question porte aussi sur la procédure, so the procedure. Comment est-ce que vous avez accès à ces données, etc., etc.
Okay, about the time frame, like to monitor the deforestation, we make the frame of time like 5 years, like from 2000 to 2005 or 2010. This is the like we can choose the frame because for the deforestation monitoring we need a large period of time to observe the change. But about the biodiversity, it's not a problem of time also because we think that the protected areas are protected. Excuse me for this repetition, but like it's about the inventory. We must consider the inventory. Some inventory we can have in protected areas, and about like the population of elephants or gorilla, like this. We can have after 5 years we can know if like for the gorilla population, we can know if the population is increased, and it is like the snapshot in one period, and in this period we can compare the evolution of population of animals population.
Perfect, thank you. And Zornitsa, do you actually have some elements of response for this one as well, on the time frame and the procedure to get the data and use them into national policies?
Yeah, necessary, because we can have some information from other laboratory outside the country. We must make the standard procedures for to have the same outcome. For to be possible, it can be possible to compare outcomes like this. We must necessarily make this in the standard procedures. Yeah.
And very well. Diego, would you be able to translate this question for Zornitsa en español, por favor? So knowing about, the time frame, how do you choose the time frame for the data, and what's the procedure for being allowed to use the data?
I'm sorry for interrupting you. Can you repeat it again, please?
Mm-hmm. How do you choose the time frame for an analysis for the spatial data? Meaning, how do you choose when it starts and when it ends? The time frame, and also if she has any elements of response for the procedure to use such data.
Ok, bueno, buenas tardes. En principio, la pregunta es sobre el uso de la línea del tiempo, el time frame que ustedes utilizaron en Ecuador, y cuáles elementos están utilizando para el procedimiento.
Zornitsa, can you hear us? We hear a lot of background noise. Yeah, okay, perfect. I hope that helped you in español.
Okay. I'm not sure about methodologies. I know there is very specific about each case, but well, no, I'm not very sure about what kind of methodologies we use. But in the web of the Ministry of Ecuador, it's available some drafts about the methodologies that we use to collect information in the field for to develop spatial analysis. I think that's for this is the question.
Yes, that does. Nahe, actually, let us know if this answers your question, and then we can dive a bit more into the response if needed. I see we also have, thank you so much, Jonita. I'm going to put you back on mute because there is a tiny bit of background noise. So Nahe says that it answers her question, so thank you. And then we have two final questions from Mohamed from Tunisia. Hi, Mohamed. Thanks for joining the webinar. So the first question, and this is for both Zornitza and Henri Paul, did the local government got involved in getting and establishing the story map? So maybe I can rephrase that and tell you, Mohamed, that no, for these story maps specifically, it was the work of UNDP, mostly in touch with Henri Paul and Zornitza directly. So we didn't have, for the sake of time, we didn't have any very local counterparts. However, maybe Henri Paul can say a few words on how the local government is usually involved in the spatial data. So Henri Paul, je traduis en français un peu la traduction de cette question, de savoir comment les gouvernements locaux sont engagés, on va dire, dans la production de données spatiales. Est-ce que voilà, les gouvernements locaux et les autorités de gestion locales sont généralement incluses dans les données spatiales, dans la production de données spatiales? Alors, hop. Est-ce que tu nous entends? Est-ce que tu peux parler?
OK. Oui, merci. Local authorities and local expertise can work about the maps or the collect of data, because sometimes we can see some change in a satellite image, but there are the necessity for to know in the ground what is the problem. Is it really deforestation? This deforestation come from human activities, or there are natural catastrophes like this. Naturally, there are some teams in the ground, and about the team in the ground, we must found local authorities, also civil society people, and research center in the local ground, or students and some researcher from a university. I can say that the local level is always and necessary consulted for some decisions, or to approve the speculations we can do from the remote sensing image. There are always a need to go to the ground and verify if the thesis about the remote sensing observation is true. It's also for to make decision. We must always have the appreciations from local people, local authority, and civil society indigenous people, and so on and so on.
Great, thank you. That's really interesting. I'm actually gonna ask the same question to Doronitsa. So in Ecuador, do you involve a lot the very local governments and the local stakeholders when it comes to verifying or producing spatial data? I'm gonna open your microphone, Doronitsa. I don't know if you can still speak yet.
Right. Well, in this case, I'm talking about the national information. And to develop this national information, all local governments are going to give a kind of collaboration when they are carrying on activities in the field. I mean, they have a participation to develop this methodology to building a national information that it's administrative management by the Ecuadorian Environmental Ministry. So in this way, I say yes. But for this presentation, not too much. But if we are talking about the sixth national report, yeah, of course. I mean, this information is going to be very useful for different levels, and intermediate governance are going to use in the planification tools, like we call like PDOTs. And yeah, to develop the sixth national report, they're going to be consulted. They participate in different meetings, and they provide for some information also. And yeah, they have to be involved. But this information is going to be the result of different partnerships that contribute in a different way with this information to construct a national information.
That makes total sense. And do you know actually if the data that you presented today is also inside the sixth national report of Ecuador?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
right.
that answers your question, Mohammed. Also to see if this data is in the 6NR. Actually, Henri Paul, is this the case for DRC also? Do you the data that you presented, is it available in the sixth national report? And en français, est-ce que les données que vous avez présentées aujourd'hui, elles sont aussi dans le rapport, le 6e rapport national pour la CDB?
Yeah, because when Charles and Jeff Mapilanga from ICCN, from National Authority for Protected Areas, came to New York to I think it was the last year. The problem is we missed in our national report to put a lot of illustrations and map and hotel to increase the level of the reports. But now the 60th report, national report is writing now, but for the team which is right now the national report, we recommend for them to use maps, and some maps in these presentations will be put in the 60th national report. I'm sure.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, Mohammed, actually, most of the information, I mean, we're really pushing hard the countries to use the UN Biodiversity Lab and the data available here for informing the sixth national report, because that really helps to make, sound decisions and guide the decision makers actually with, science and evidence of where we need more biodiversity conservation, and also, to see the progress in a good or the bad way of the policies for conservation. So definitely most of the data we're presenting through this webinar series are inside the the sixth national report. And I know Tunisia already submitted their sixth national report, so congratulations for that. I don't know, and I don't think there are many maps in Tunisia 6NR, but for sure in the future, we strongly encourage countries to use that. So I hope this answers your question, Mohammed, and thank you so much for participating. So I think we are running out of questions actually, and kind of running out of time soon. So I will give you, Henri-Paul, the floor for concluding observations, and if there is anything you would like to share before we conclude this webinar. Donc si, Henri-Paul, si tu as quelques remarques de conclusion à partager avec nos participants.
Yeah, the first one, I'm very happy to participate in this webinar, and I'm very happy also to know the others' experiences from Belize and Ecuador. Unfortunately, we don't hear from IT. I say that. I think that is now a need to share informations, to share experiences from each countries. Like this, we can move in the same directions, and the level of our national reports can be increased, because we can see how other countries or other people are making the reports. I think that is very important exercise we did today. I'm happy to take place in this exercise.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Henri-Paul, for your participation. And I'm also turning now to Zornitza, reactivating your microphone to see if you have any concluding remarks or anything you would like to share with the participants before we conclude the webinar.
Okay, on my conclusion, I only want to say that having spatial information is crucial to make timely and appropriate decisions, and it's fundamental to they are available for different sectors: academic, private, public, for everywhere, and to use this information to develop environmental policies, and try to use this information to be more effective, especially with the target 4, the IT target 4, that after several analysis, this is the target that it's more important, because if we focus on this target, it's possible to give the solutions to the most of the target edges.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Zornitza, also for that concluding response. And I see we have a very last question from Leilani from Samoa that is asking how many countries have submitted their 6NR. And Leilani, I can tell you this morning I was in touch with counterpart from CBD, and 90 reports have been submitted so far. So of course I encourage everyone here to submit as soon as possible the 6NR. Considering the content of your 6NR will be very helpful for the analysis of the GBO5 and also the post-2020 global framework on biodiversity. So I would like to thank you, all of our speakers today, for trying desperately to get online despite many difficulties from all around the world. And I would also like to thank our participants who stayed online and went through all of the story maps with us. Thank you very much for all of your questions and your interaction. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we're going to upload the recording of this session on the NBSAP Forum YouTube channel, and we'll also share it via email. So the next session of this webinar series, will be hosted in 2 weeks, which is Tuesday, 25th June, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. New York time. So it's earlier than today. And we're going to have 4 countries, hopefully 5. We're going to have Iraq, Niger, Venezuela, Vietnam, and tentatively Haiti, that will share their experience on how the UN Biodiversity Lab is supporting biodiversity monitoring and conservation in those countries. So this is a logical follow-up of this webinar, and I really hope I'm going to see you all there. Again, thanks for your participation and your presentation, and have a great day, everyone. This concludes the webinar.